what's the best way to get started as an interior designer? Should you go work for yourself or should you try and get a job? Well, there is no one size fits all answer, and the big thing to consider is where you are in your life or career. So, firstly, you need to know whether you're starting obviously right out of school. Are you going straight into interior design? Have you just finished school and this is the career path that you've decided to take? Or are you deciding to change careers a little bit later in life and then go and follow the path of becoming an interior designer? I think these are the two very key things to consider whether you're going to get a job or whether you're going to, or whether it's even possible to get a job, and whether you're going to work for yourself. Also, I think the key thing here is to become a successful interior designer, the main thing that you are going to need is experience. So no matter what path you take, experience is always the key. And so how you're going to gain that experience is really the question as well. So let's just say you're starting out at the beginning of your career, you're straight out of school, and you've just, you know that interior design is the one thing that you're planning on doing. So this is where going straight into working for someone else would be, in my opinion, the right thing to do in most cases. Not in all cases, but in most cases. And the reason is because the vast majority of those coming into the profession straight out of school need to build a lot of a kind of complementary skills alongside the skills of an interior designer. So what do I mean by that? Well, skills like confidence. Confidence to speak to a client, confidence to speak to a builder, confidence to speak to really usually experienced people in their professions, and to be able to hold that conversation well. So in order to do that, you really do need confidence, because no matter whether you're working on small projects, large projects, or whether no matter where you are, you need to start building the confidence to speak to people about your designs, about a project, about the process of a project. That requires some confidence. And, you know, I've said this before, but usually, and I know this is kind of a very blanket approach, but usually with age comes confidence, and with age comes kind of emotional maturity, and I suppose that those kind of interpersonal skills that you get just through life experience, which are required as an interior designer, because that's what you're predominantly doing, is speaking to people and expressing ideas, and the way that you express those ideas needs to be more developed, because or else you're not going to do very well, because explaining or communicating is 99% of the job. So if you're straight out of school, I would suggest going to try and get a job. But in order to get a job, you're going to predominantly you will need a degree if you want a job in interior design, especially if you want to work in a big practice, which is pretty much the only real option you have in most cases, because most interior designers who are working in practice are predominantly working on their own. So there's not a lot of chance to get a job with just a solo designer in most cases, unless you're just helping them out here or there on a few projects. So it's just not how designers work, and just the ebb and flow of a project means that you're not that useful through all phases of a project unless you've got multiple people working in the office, which means that you can have multiple projects, which allows that ebb and flow of projects to go a little bit, is more consistent. So that's just the way projects work. But what else? If you're wanting to work in teams and grow those skills with teams, you know, working for someone else is really, really the right way to go, because you're going to be building skills beyond those of just interior design. You're going to be getting more diverse kind of perspectives, access to mentors, building a network. You'll be doing so much more when you're working for someone else to build the success in your career, rather than if you were to try and start out on your own, especially if you're really just starting out in your career as a whole, so not as a second career. So now let's have a look at if you're somebody getting into interior design as a second career, again, it's highly unlikely, because most of the people who are changing careers into interior design a little bit later, it's highly unlikely that you are going to invest in a second degree or a third degree for some of you, or in a degree if this is your first one, after many years of pursuing a different career. And because of that, it's unlikely that you're going to be able to get a position in a design firm, especially like a large architectural or multidisciplinary firm. So because they're getting the recent graduates, because they get the pick of the creme de la creme of the top of the graduates. And that is how they get their graduates. That's how they get their interior designers. They don't even have to really, well, they will get CVs and they will get applications for specific job roles. But if you're a recent graduate or just starting out in interior design, the way to get a job in a large practice is at graduation, basically, because that is when you're already being picked. Like even before you graduate, you already know where you're going to be going. So if you've just decided to change careers, this isn't that much of a possibility for you unless you literally go and do another degree, or already know somebody who might potentially hire you based on skill. And when you're first starting out, that's not going to be the thing that you're going to be really good at. So it's more likely that if you want to succeed as an interior designer and you're starting your career later in life, it's more probable that the easiest success is going to be by going and working for yourself and working directly with clients. And that might actually be the exciting thing for you, because you might think, well, I don't, the whole reason I want to work for myself as an interior designer is because I want to work on my own terms and I want that flexibility. I already have a network of people that might be potential clients from my past career or careers. So that is already to your benefit. And you've already, by starting this as a second career, you've already kind of skipped all of those things that someone just starting out fresh in their career. So this comes with age and experience, but things like, well, I spoke about confidence earlier, a bit of maturity. So when you're already going to somebody's house, there are certain rules and manners, and I suppose just a bit of common sense. Not that you don't have that when you're younger, but just things that come with experience and life experience that you will know about, that, when you're, because you will be invited into private areas of people's homes, and there is a certain etiquette, I suppose, an understanding of what, how you should act when you see someone's underwear on the floor. I mean, I know, like, it's just a bad example, but so if you are starting out later in your career, it's more likely that you're going to want to start working directly for yourself and getting experience directly with clients, rather than wasting your time trying to get a job that you will be very, very, very unlikely to get, because the competition is just so fierce with those students who are just coming straight fresh out of university, because there's far more students who have just graduated university with exceptional skills who are going to fill a very limited amount of positions. So in fact, even I suppose the big question is, what happens if you're one of those other designers who doesn't get one of those jobs, because there's not that many. So in that case, again, I think the best way is to start working for yourself and start getting experience, because experience is the answer to everything in interior design. So do you work with a team? I suppose that's the next question is, do you want to work with a team or do you want to work solo? Because getting a job and working for yourself, working for yourself can be lonely. If you're a very social person, it can be really hard to ultimately just go and start working alone. For some people, that is the dream. But for a lot of designers who are social people, that can be very kind of disheartening and unmotivating. So obviously there are other ways to deal with that, whereas, you know, creating a social group and obviously networking and working with other people, co-working. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be isolated if you do work solo. That's a decision. So it's something you have to consider when you're setting up yourself in that way. But it's not a very it's not inevitable, I suppose, is what I'm saying. Also, we that's what it prompted us to create our InterDesign mentorship platform, which was one of the reasons behind having a kind of virtual workspace of where you could go and, you know, be the kind of designer who is working solo technically, but still within that kind of virtual office environment. So if you are a virtual designer or somebody who is planning on working on their own or working solo, growing your business, check that out as a resource. What's next? What about the types of projects that you're working on? Well, does it matter? If you want to work on commercial projects or small projects, it does kind of matter, because a lot of commercial projects require a bigger team or a lot of skill. So if you want to go and start working on commercial projects, it's not not the general rule. Well, I suppose it is the general rule, but obviously there's always the exception. Most of the time, if you want to work on large commercial interiors, you should be working in practice to gain that experience or to work on those projects, because they're the kinds of companies who will get those types of projects, because they're the kinds of clients, designers who have the capacity and also all of the resources in order to provide that service to that client. So it's rare. I mean, it's kind of rare because I am a solo designer who does do large commercial projects, but I am the exception to the rule in that case. Most of the time you would need a large team to do what I do on my own most of the time. So so if you want to work on residential interiors, most of the time that it doesn't really matter. You can work on in both commercial or both practice in a job or in a solo kind of situation. But I suppose the scope of work and how much you can actually take on, the amount of projects you can take on, and the complexity of a project will matter. So if you want to work on really complex projects, again, one solo person working on a super complex projects, more than one. I mean, you could do one, but if you're, you know, working on 2 or 3 projects that are all at that capacity, and I've done this, so I know how hard it is, it's really unlikely that you can manage that on your own. So it's really likely that you'll be part of a team, and that is just how interior design works. There's a lot to do. There's a part of a collaborative team, and that is how you need to kind of gain that experience in order to become a successful designer. So to go back to the question, what's the best way to get started in interior design? Is it to work for myself, or is it to work for someone else? And in my opinion, it really isn't. There is no blanket answer, but ask yourself the question: are you at the beginning of your career? Are you at the end of your career? And have a look at what makes sense for you at your stage in life. We've obviously got a blog post associated with this video, so go and check that out, because you can get a downloadable about and really go into this a little bit deeper. And just tell me, where do you find yourself taking your career? Where are you in your career, and which path do you think you're going to take?